So, welcome everybody. My name is Kim Victoria, and this is Race. Let's talk about it. Today, my guests are.
Cantley Elliott.
I'm Julie Trice.
And I'm Rob Rue.
And this is just a really relaxed atmosphere. One of the things we wanted to do, or I'll say I wanted to do, as when I contacted everybody, is I just wanted to get with each of you and some additional people and just start having conversation and dialogue around the topic of race. With everything that's been going on in the last few months, that's kind of heightened the awareness to everyone, we wanted to kind of get together and just have some good dialogue. With that being said, I just kind of wanted to, you can see that there's a mixed group here, and with each panel discussion we want to have a mixed group of individuals. But I also wanted each of you to kind of share a little bit about yourself so that we understand it's not just how we look that makes us different, but also whether it's our careers, ages, and so on. So Andy Cantley, I'll go ahead and start with you.
So Cantley Elliott, 23 years old, graduated from Wittenberg University last year. Studied English, minor in journalism, work for ABC and Fox News now. So I have to be there 3 in the morning every day, so that's never fun. It's an hour drive every day. I'm looking at moving soon. So that's it. Cover the Buckeyes football and basketball team. So I have a lot going on all the time. So,
All right,
yes,
great,
ma'am.
great.
All right. Well, my name's Julie Trice. I am a mother of 5. I've got 3 boys and 2 girls, and my husband Travis is a State Farm agent. We live in Huber Heights. I'm an interpreter for the deaf by trade, and that occupies a lot of my time. And we won't say anything about you being the Buckeyes. You know, it was coming because we're a Big Ten family.
Oh, yeah.
Ohio State is great.
Well, okay, go green and on Wisconsin.
That's right, in Wisconsin.
Wait till your turn.
Sorry about
Sorry.
that. Big what? Big Ten what?
That's right. And I really am excited. I'm so appreciative that you have opened this up for the door of discussion
Yeah.
so that we can start that ball rolling. So people will feel more comfortable and more relaxed. And let's just get it out on the table.
Okay, good.
That's good. Well, I'm Rob Rue, and I am a business owner in Clark County, funeral director, also city commissioner for City of Springfield. I am father of 5 kids, boy, girl, boy. And I am 50 years old with a 3-year-old at home, my kid.
Wow.
And so I've got a busy life too. And so I'm just glad to be here. There's this whole season with the obvious racial injustice that has come on the forefront, I think, of people's minds before. I guess I'd say before, it really should have been on a lot of people's minds more than it is now, but I think it's awakening some people like me. So I'm glad to be in this conversation. I've had my own awakening on the injustice and the inequality that has really been in our country. And kind of sad to say I'm late to the party, but I'm here, and it's not a party, it's a real deal, and I want to be a good, positive voice for that. So.
Okay, great. And all of you know me. Actually, Rob, I'm meeting him for the first time. That's not over the phone.
But we're friends.
Yep, there you go. So my name's Kim Victoria, for anybody that doesn't know me, and I am 50 years old, and I am the mother of 3, 2 boys and a girl, and they're all grown, so I'm not not feeling so
I'll be
for you with
65
the
with an
3-year-old.
18-year-old.
I'm actually an employee at Navistar, and I've been there for 26 years. I work on the floor, and then I also work within the diversity department there. So, I'm going to use that as a segment to jump right into it. So I kind of want to let you know, race for me has been, I would say, a lifelong journey. From my childhood, being biracial, also being adopted. My adopted parents were both white from Iowa, and I had 9 brothers and sisters. So there were 5 girls, 5 boys, and we were all different races. And so we were quite the eclectic family growing up. So that has always been on the forefront of discussion throughout my life, and a passion for me. And then when I started working at Navistar, and probably within the first 5 years or so, I was introduced to their diversity program there, and it just kind of really took off. And I found that that's pretty much my passion in life, to explore. I like meeting other people. I like hearing about other people, other cultures, trying to get to understand what makes other people tick, what goes on in their minds and things like that, and trying to maybe, I guess, help bridge that gap to help other people understand that as well. So, Andy, maybe give us a little background on why this would be an important topic for you.
So I think race is important for me, more so because, you know, the area, you guys used to live close to us. It's a predominantly white neighborhood. So a lot of things that happened in our neighborhood kind of influenced how I was brought up. I've had people drive by my house before and say, do you always do yard work over here, stuff like that? And I'm like, well,
Wow.
I live here, you know, so things like that. But then going to a lot of different schools, I went to, you know, the city schools growing up, high school, predominantly white schools. So I've kind of experienced both, you know, types of culture. I think both have had an influence on me, positively and negatively. So, you know, just kind of understanding how people are, understanding everybody's not bad just because of the way you look. So, you know, it's been a big part of my life too, I'd say. And I'm only 23, so I can only imagine
Right.
you guys' experiences.
That's the older folks.
Yeah.
What about you, Julie?
Okay, so I am biracial. My dad is black and my mom is white. I grew up on the north side of town, and obviously always looked a little bit different than my peers. So I can speak on that part of what it was like growing up, always looking different. And then also I have 3 adult male children. Travis is 27, Demetric is 24, and Isaiah is 22. And so with everything going on, it's how do I educate them to keep their hands at 10 and 2 if they're pulled over?
Right.
How do I educate them to properly respond if they are approached with some kind of racial slurs or even anything? So I'm coming at it as a personal experience as well as a parental one.
And Rob, you kind of touched on it a little
Yeah.
bit here,
Oh,
and
that's
then
okay.
also in our conversation. I was really encouraged by some of the things you said the first time that we spoke about just the fact that I think, if I remember correctly, you just kind of said, hey, I felt like I had to do something, that I could no longer sit on the sidelines anymore. So maybe tell us a little bit.
I think, I mean, so if you just, can we just go right to the incident with George
Sure.
Floyd?
Yeah.
So when he was murdered, I had seen that. I just like woke up in the morning and didn't really know much at that point, and then saw the video. I've been going to a church in Springfield. I have a pastor who is black and a pastor who is white, and we've been going there for over a year. And I have been becoming friends with the you know, a kind of a multicultural church. And I've just not really experienced that. I've usually gone to a white church. Most black people go to a black church. And funeral homes are black and funeral homes are white. That's just 2 of the most segregated
Right.
things in the area. But we have experienced in my business more of a blending of cross-cultural experience and also in going to church. So I become friends with my pastor, Jason Channels, and his family. And I remember just one time looking at him and going, I want to be your friend, but I honestly, Jason, I don't know how to talk to you, because every time I talk to you, I'm like bringing up either a black pastor or a black family I just took care of. And it was like, I felt stupid inside. And I'm like, and Jason, if you know him, is a super sweet guy, very caring. And he's just like, he just gives me that smile. He said, man, it's all right. You know, I mean, because I'm like, I want to be deeper than this. I just feel like so shallow. And so, you know, this was like a while ago. And so we had conversations and talked. And then George Floyd was murdered, and I called him in the morning. I just called, and I was crying. It was just really hit me deeply, this injustice, this murder, and I said, Jason, I'm sorry, I don't know what to say. And his beautiful wife Teresa, I now understand why Teresa always has a very straight look on her face. She's just super sober, super sweet, but raising African American boys in our community, like you already talked about, there is a something I just couldn't understand, and there's a concern all the time, and I have a little bit more of an understanding. I don't want to pretend to get it because I don't totally get it, but I do understand what she has to look out for her sons and what Jason has to be concerned about. So I'm just talking about that friendship with them. I care about them. And so when George Floyd was murdered, I had to keep caring, which means I couldn't just see that and not be affected or not anything, not call my friend who would care. And there's been several other injustices that I can't even remember bring up these right now, but I'm just saying I just had to I had to take a step, and all I could do is call and cry with Jason and be like, I don't know what to say, but I'm just really sorry. And I know a lot of black men and women are tired of hearing I'm sorry. I understand. And some black men and women don't really care what people have to say, like, you know, you're not going to last long, or, you know, there's positive and negative, but most everybody I think is glad that at least there's people waking up.
Right.
So I'll say that. That's why I'm here. That's why I got on TV twice, I think, with the city, calling white people to wake up to the injustice that's out there, and saying I'm one of those that I don't care. I'm 50. I'm going to wake up more than I have to. Can't sit by idly, and I don't know what being in gear or non-idle is. All I know is I got to keep talking, have the conversation, create relationships with people of color.
Yeah.
And it does take effort. It does, and it's sad it takes effort, but it takes effort because we don't get each other, and I wanna make an effort to do that. So steps, baby steps, guys. It's not. I mean, I got one guy I haven't seen for 2 weeks. I'm like, man, I want to get together with you, but I've been swamped. So, you know, baby steps. That's all. You know.
But I think you said the key thing, and you want to, and you're trying. Yes, of course, there's always going to be the naysayer that says, you know, this is just
they're all
something
colors,
he's doing
aren't they?
for right now. Right. I mean, but I think that the key is trying, because one of the things that even people don't get is it isn't just white people that don't want to have this conversation. You know what I mean?
I've learned a little bit of that.
It's
Yeah,
all of us. Yeah, there's a lot of people on every side of the fence that don't necessarily want to sit down and have this conversation. What about you, Andy? How did the George Floyd incident affect you?
Well, one of the things I've kind of said since this has started is, like, for other people outside of, you know, the black community, is we need your support more than we need your opinions. Because when the whole thing first happened, you know, I'd post on Facebook out of frustration and anger, and people were commenting on there telling me how to feel about it. And I'm kind of like, you know, you can't tell somebody how to feel about certain things that have been going on, especially for so long. And, you know, it was just really frustrating to me that, you know, people were telling me, you know, you hate white people, this. I'm like, that's not what it is at all. So, you know, that was kind of my biggest takeaway from it at first, was just support, prayers, thoughts for, you know, people that are, you know, experiencing social injustice, and not so much an opinion, because a lot of people too would hit you with the reverse racism. They'd say, well, you know, this is happening to us and this is happening to us, trying to play the victim. I'm like, that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about the problems that are actually happening and, you know, some people's reality. So that was my biggest takeaway from it.
Yeah.
Oh.
What about you, Jill?
Okay. I would say I really found out a lot about the people who I thought were my friends. Like, I really thought I knew people, and what social media allows. Ooh, it's like truth serum. Like, they feel bold behind that keyboard.
Yeah.
Keyboard warriors.
What? I mean, it's like, I will never block someone because they have a difference of opinion from me.
Right.
Ever. I'm going to be Julie all the way. If you can't handle me how I bring it, then you can unfriend me. But I'm never going to unfriend somebody because they support this political party, or they feel like white privilege isn't a real thing, or whatever. Let's have a conversation.
Right.
So why don't let's sit down and talk, like, with walls down, with guards down, and the heart to actually listen and hear what has to happen. So, yes, enraged about what happened to George Floyd, but man, that's just one of many.
Right.
That was just one that was pulled out in the spotlight. My takeaway would be I found out who a lot of people were on social media because they showed their true colors.
I was going to add something to your point.
Yeah.
It's funny. You say sit down and have a conversation with people. That was my biggest thing, too, is there were some people I wanted to sit and talk to. But I think oftentimes for Black people, there's always a stigma that we're angry about something, especially the women. And I'm like, it's not like that at all. Like, we just want to sit and have a conversation with you and talk things out.
Unguarded.
And yeah,
Not feeling
exactly.
like you're going to attack
For
me.
sure. Because we're not
Sometimes
going to.
passionate.
Yes.
And passionate gets mistaken
Yeah.
for you're angry.
Exactly.
It's funny you said that because I had a meeting, I won't say with who, get myself in trouble this week, and that question was asked. And I felt myself getting more and more passionate and upset. And I was upset because it didn't make sense to me. And the person says, why are you yelling? Why are you? I said, I'm not yelling. I said, but I'm a Black woman that wants to understand what parameters we're talking about here. I know for me, the George Floyd incident was just like everybody else. It was heartbreaking. And it was probably one of the most difficult things for me to actually sit down and watch. A lot of times I don't watch videos that people post. That's not my thing. But someone had asked me, had I seen it? So I didn't even see it right away. And I said, no. And they said, you've got to watch it. And I even ended up sharing it with a friend. And they had said, they were like, no, I really don't want. I said, no. I said, this particular one, you need to watch. I said, and you need to watch it in its entirety because it's very sobering. Because just the watching of it was just, and the part that hit me, as Julie said, but I have two sons. One's 33 and one just turned 23. And and my 23, as most youngest in the family, can kind of, borderline on busy and just all over the place. And they, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no.
But, they're in that, especially for a male, they don't want to hear from mom so much anymore. They kind of want to do their own thing. And all I kept thinking is that could have been my son. We don't like to talk about it, but because a lot of times we always want to hold our kids in the prize light that they're these perfect little angels. But, I've always been a realist parent, and I understand that my kids are no more perfect than anybody else's children, and they have their flaws, and they have their friends, and I even remember when I was younger, and I didn't always do everything right, and all I kept thinking was, this man died because he tried to pass a fake $20 bill. And there are times when people even have fake money and they don't realize it. And that could have been just a conversation, you know what I mean? But it wasn't a conversation. And then the part that even with social media that kills me, especially when it's people from your job, that you see things that they post and you're just ready to walk in and go,
Attack mode.
The excuses for it, the trying to reason it away, and well, clearly he was on drugs, and finally I just got really angry one day, and I said, nurses and doctors deal with people on drugs every day, and they're not in the emergency rooms choking them out. You know what I mean?
Right.
So stop with the So yeah, for me, it just really. To me, it infuriated me to a level that, I've done classes and I've done trainings with people and I've put up with some real racist pieces of work, but that in and of itself drew me even out of because I usually won't even comment on people's posts. And I got to the point where people got mad because of some of the things I would say, and I'd say, hey, you friended me, so if you don't like my comments, unfriend me.
There's a button for you.
I think something for the video, because that's funny you said the entire video, because when I spoke about it, I said, white people, you need to watch this entire 10-minute and I think like 47-second video, and then you need to find the one where nobody else is talking except the people that are holding the phones, and that's the raw one. And it's like, if you can watch that and be unaffected, you got some real problems. And it's almost like what I experienced in that is it washed over me. I don't know if you know what I mean by that. It just washed over me, and it went in deep, and I I kept watching. There, I wanted to shut off. I remember this. I wanted to shut it off at 6 minutes. And then I don't know. I call it grace because I knew it was bad, but I just kept watching because I knew there was something, and I could not get over the fact that he kept his knee on George's neck.
Just so cavalier.
I couldn't get over it. And then I thought, let me see. He wouldn't do that to a white woman. Wouldn't do that to a white man. May not even do it to a black woman, but I don't know. I'm just saying. He held his knee and he didn't move it, and it just went in deep for me. And I guess it rooted up something. You know, with systemic racism, there's systemic ignorance, and I think that is a lot of what white people deal with is the excuses that you already talked about in the comments. They come up so naturally without even wanting them there. I'll say, and that's where I said there was some defaults in me that were confronted that I'm like, you know, it's like I love people more than this default coming up. Then I'm like, it's like I felt myself wanting to find some sort of justification or some sort of excuse, and it couldn't settle anymore. And I even told a couple people, I was like, there's just defaults I got to get out there because it's just there, and it's there maybe being raised in white privilege. It's there being raised in just in this community. I don't know, in every community around the world, it's all there. But I'm just saying there's this thing where you feel like you're entitled to think a certain way without even like wanting to live entitled, if that makes sense, you know? And so that's kind of what I experienced. There's just things that need to be reset.
With you saying that, you are part of the change because you see what you were raised in and how you were raised, compare it with other cultures.
Mm-hmm.
How can I switch this gear? Because I acknowledge that there are some defaults inside of me. I mean, and we all have defaults, but I'm just speaking as you as a white man in this type of...
And you can't help defaults. Sometimes it's like...
Absolutely you can't. They're innate.
Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this wouldn't have bothered me. And, you know, like,
right.
What? Or I made an excuse for that.
But the fact that you are willing to be proactive and humble enough to say, my bad, I should not have... Let me take that back. Now let me tell you what I really meant by saying that. Or I'm trying to change. Help me change. Help me become more aware. And I appreciate that about you.
Yeah.
Seriously,
Oh,
especially
in
your position of where you are, to be able to grab a microphone and announce something like that, it's huge. Not a lot of people do that. So high five to you.
Well,
elbow bump,
it wasn't.
whatever we're allowed
Let me
to
tell
do
you
these
what.
days.
I'm not running right now, so it had nothing to do with that.
Right.
But I mean, it's just like
it doesn't matter. It's seen. It's going to be seen and recognized by the right people. And and watch how hashtag watch God work. Watch how he shifts your position.
Right.
Well, and I need, you know, we all need wisdom in how we can stir this so our voices aren't dull. So
Correct.
like when you get emotional or you get emotional, you're not like, just mad. Well, yeah, it's been
Correct.
a long time. It's
Yes,
been a
we are,
long time.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things that interests me, even some of the things, I get a lot of commentary on some of the things that people are saying. For example, because it is an election year, you hear everybody saying, oh, this is just the media pushing this. This is social media. This is, you know, and anymore, the thing that I find hilarious, and I think this is the good and the bad of social media, because I can remember growing up and all your parents had was the three channels, and you watched news at 6 and 11 o'clock, and that's how you got your information. And now you have an abundance of media and abundance of news channels, but everybody believes that that's not a good media source. That's not a good media source. You know what I mean? So you get to the point where
it's all mixed.
It's funny because people believe what they want to hear. So that same media source can report one thing, and if it aligns with what they believe, then that's true. But then as soon as they do something that is adversarial to the way they believe, then no, that news source can't be trusted. So what do you think in that? What do you think the role of social media and news is in perpetuating racism?
Well, you know, Facebook and Twitter, that's the best way to get your information. I mean, that's where you tell the truth that everybody apparently.
It's all true if it's
It's all
tweeted.
true.
Right, right,
It
right.
is,
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
Truth, tweet it
Yeah.
rhymes.
Right.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of like you. The videos are the most important thing for me because all the stories you hear that you read, they're all different depending on who the media is. So I just kind of watch the videos and get information for myself, form my own opinions. I try to stay off of social media sometimes, getting that stuff, just because everybody's so all over the place with
Right.
it. So I mean, you know, I just like to form my own opinion more so and stuff.
I think the funniest thing is when I had a kind of a engaging conversation with someone, and they said, you know, you just sit around listening to news and Facebook all day, don't you? And I'm thinking, not really. I couldn't tell you the last time I sat down and watched news, but you know, like you, I wanted to help that person understand, and my intent when I first started the conversation was, I really want you to get it. And, you know, I explained, I said, no, this is coming from my personal views. This is coming from experiences that I've had as an individual. This is coming from I shared even a story with her. I said, I understand that people really do, because she had put a post that if you're not doing anything wrong, nobody's going to bother you. And I thought, what? You know, and so I had said, that's a lie, and it just started. And, you know, and I even told her, I said, I'm very fair-skinned for somebody black. And I said, I was on my way to Myrtle Beach with my children, and they each had taken a friend, and we got pulled over. And I'm just like, what in the world did I get pulled over for? And we were in West Virginia. And, you know, of course, I have one son that's like, oh, these police, you know, and I'm just like, shut up, don't say anything, you know. And so he's in the front seat, and then my daughter is probably Julie's complexion, and she had her friend with her, and she was white. And then my son's a little darker than Julie, and he had BB with him, who's even more chocolate than Cammy. And so I could see the police officer kind of looking through the car and trying to understand. And so then it was followed by this barrage of questioning. You know, what are you doing? Where are you going? All of these kind of things. And I was just like, and so finally I was just like, what did I do wrong? And he says, you were following the car in front of you too closely. Now, mind you, he came trailing like way back in the back. And I'm thinking, how did you know I was following someone too closely and you're behind me? But so, you know, and I didn't get a ticket. But
Yeah, harassed.
I truly believe that as he saw the makeup of the vehicle and the people in there, and he wanted to know who everybody was, I thought probably saw this white girl in this car, you know what I mean? With all these black people, and I'm like, what are going on here? And so I tried to share that story with her and explain to her, this happened to even me, you know, and my sons and their father have gone through and come home numerous times and told me of things that have happened to them. So this is real. This is real to us. We don't have to watch it from a video. We've all experienced this in some way, shape, or form. So that's one of the things that really disturbs me. So
it's funny you talk about, you know, the stories of getting pulled over, because when I'm driving to Columbus, it's like I leave my house at 2:30 in the morning, so there's always cops out.
right.
And I was getting on a back road one time to get me to the freeway a little faster. I got pulled over. The cop said my left turn was a little too sharp. Well, there's nobody even out at this time. I'm kind of like, why would you even pull me over for that? So ever since then, when I told my parents I took the back road, they say, you know, take the main streets in case anything happens. You know, you're where people can see you. You know, turn the camera on, stuff like that. And it's kind of sad, you know, that my parents are telling me all this, but to get pulled over because my left turn was a little too sharp.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, really? So. And I tell other people that, and they say, well, you should maybe just drive a little better, stuff like that. And I'm kind of like, okay, so whatever. But
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The other thing that has been brought forward, or a lot of people I've heard them say, is that racism was getting so much better. And now it's, you know, now with all this that's going on, it's just, you guys are blowing this way out of proportion. And so what do you think? Do you think racism had gotten better? Do you think it had just gotten better at being hidden? What are your feelings on that?
Oh, I got him. Just
Yeah.
let me form him.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I definitely don't feel like it's gotten any better at all. We've just had, it's almost like layers of an onion that have been peeled back, and now we're almost to that core of the onion where it really stinks and it really makes your eyes burn, and some people can't handle that burn.
Ooh,
Right.
Yeah.
Where people of color have experienced that for years. So our skin is a little bit tougher if our grandparents were hosed down by the policemen, or our aunts and uncles or great-grandparents were slaves. That's inside of us. But now that we're opening up a discussion and things are becoming more relevant and we're getting closer to the end, there's so much more to be revealed. I don't feel like racism has gotten.
It's just quieter, right? You know, it's gotten quieter and more tolerated.
Yeah.
Right? Until something,
Something
a
happens.
murder
and
happens, and you're forced to choose.
It's still here.
Yeah.
It's funny too, because when the George Floyd thing happened and you see all the protests and people just going crazy everywhere, I don't know why, but in the back of my mind, I thought, well, maybe this will get more people's attention. You might not hear of anything for that long, but George Floyd was, 3 months ago? I've seen 3 or 4 more guys get either shot or killed,
Yeah.
not doing anything. And I'm kind of like, it's only a matter of time.
Right.
It's just going
Right.
to keep happening. So
Right.
it's just interesting. I don't know why I even thought for a second that things will calm down, but the guy in the Wendy's drive-through, you get the guy just now who got 7 shots in the back
In
Right.
Wisconsin.
in Wisconsin. Yeah.
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 Right.
Exactly,
I'm
yeah.
You're
like,
leaving to
Yeah.
take your son.
A little too
Right.
close to home. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think I think that's kind of why I wanted to do something like this. And it's not to minimize protests by any means. I think that they do bring and shine a light. But I remember watching the protests and thinking to myself, okay, now what?
Correct.
Once this is over, because we all know, like everything, it's like it has a rise and it's at its height, and then all of a sudden it starts to die down. I mean, because if you think about it, except for those that are really bitter on the inside, you don't even see near as many posts about anything
It was a
having to
trend.
do with
Well,
race.
So that's it. What?
Yeah.
What? There's my question. What do you do now? I mean, the conversation we're
Right,
here, but I'm
right.
like, what do you do now? I mean, like, and you're talking about the situations that I've never dealt with. I've never been pulled over for something as stupid and minuscule. But until like, if you put a black man and a white man together and they act exactly the same way, yet there's something in the white person that gets lit up because they're both acting emotional, they're both doing the same thing, but I'm getting lit up because the black man is doing it too. And I have my brain cannot even, a white person's brain cannot even digest it as normal. Right? And it just like you can't drive by a police car without getting lit up.
Correct.
You can't feel safe. Not all cops are bad. We all know that.
Right.
But I'm just
I
saying,
agree.
you
Right.
can't feel safe. I can drive down the street at Limestone at 2. Hey, son, stop calling me. 1:30, 2:30 in the morning, and not be concerned about being pulled
Correct.
over.
Right.
Or taking a sharp turn.
Yeah. We're taking a
But I
shot
think
there.
the
I don't
top-
watch my speed at night
Right.
extra special.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I and
But do you
that's
understand that is something very, very real?
Oh yeah,
And not
Yeah.
just for blacks or African Americans, but anyone of color.
yeah.
You're going to get,
Looked at second look.
and you get, your hands might get a little bit, oh gosh, when those blue lights and red lights are in your rearview mirror, something happens almost like chemically inside where
That's-
you freeze.
So
and
when
you-
I say lit up, that's what
that's
it's
the
doing.
lit
It's
up,
like it's
okay.
like going
Right,
it's
right.
like going
it's like
there.
a chemical reaction that's
Yeah, it's like
just-
something in you is like
Mhm.
rising up, and it's just when and how can that change, right?
But
I mean,
do
when and
think
how?
the conversation is a start because, you hear let's defund the police, or let's not, they need to do this and they need, But if you never address the problem,
Correct.
you can train someone 1,000 times on how to pull their weapon, when to pull their weapon, how to seduce, all of those kind of things. But if it's not dealing with your heart, if it's not dealing with what's going on in your mind at that time, then all of that training is for naught, because everything you do, everything any one of us do. I mean, if you think about it, it's just like when I would train people at work and we talk about unconscious bias, and I would talk about the fact that we all have it. It's not just a white person thing. There's things that I have biases on. There's things that Andy Cantley's going to have biases on. Julie's going to have biases on. It's about realizing it. It's about you saying exactly what you said. I'm aware and I'm alert to realizing that as soon as that thought comes into my mind, I have to kind of check that and say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Why am I
Feeling this
assuming
way.
this? Why am I doing it this way? And then you can change your behavior. But if you sit in a world where you don't ever acknowledge that that's going on, then it allows you to continue to conduct in the way, like somebody, I want to think his name was Tim Wise. He's a white gentleman. He has lectures on YouTube. And he said most people, I believe, really are good people. The problem is, if you are a good person, you have to react.
Mhm.
If you're a good person and you acknowledge, just kind of like when you said you have to sit down and you have to watch this. Because if you're a good person in your heart and you watch something like that, there's no way for you to watch it and
Feel
not
normal.
make a conscious step to make it change. If you just ignore it and you pretend that it doesn't exist and you make excuses and, somebody says Black Lives Matter and you say White Lives Matter or All Lives Matter, those are your ways to kind of like throw that blanket over the problem really quickly so you don't have to acknowledge it and
Right.
you don't have
It
to
is-
deal with it.
You
Then
don't
you
have
can
to
still be a good person
Correct.
Yeah.
because you don't see it, as you said.
It's
kind
emotional
of you stay in
displacement.
a little bit of ignorance
It's
there.
stiff arming your feelings by
Right.
covering it blank. What you just said, that's funny you brought up All Lives Matter, because that's like one of the first statements I took exception to right away when I saw friends that I love, people that are not just kind of like I said, just kind of like passively ignorant, but not overtly anything, it
Right.
seems. And they're putting, like All Lives Matter, but it wasn't like even in controversy how they're saying it. That's one of my
Yeah.
posts. I went, I was like, it was not an all life sitting under that knee and
Right.
dying
Yeah.
there. It wasn't. I mean, it was a black man, and it was, it just has to be different. And it is a way. I think, yeah, of course, every life matters.
Right.
And a compassionate, good person who is concerned about Black lives knows inside, yeah, every life, of course, is valuable and important. But that's not what we're talking about right now.
Right.
Right.
So, yeah, I
Yeah.
took real exception. I was surprised, actually. I'm like,
Yeah,
no.
one of the best things I saw for that when this whole thing started was they said it's almost like you go to a rally or something for heart disease, and somebody comes and says, well, people with AIDS are dying too and stuff, and they said, well, we're here for people with heart disease. We're not here for all
Right.
these other diseases. They matter, but we're talking about heart disease
Right.
right now. That's what we're here
That's
for.
a good way to put
That
it.
is
Yeah.
good.
No, we need to talk about lungs. No, this is the
Yeah.
heart rally.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
you're a
Hearts.
funeral director.
Yeah, right.
It'd be like being at a funeral for somebody
Yeah.
and somebody else standing up says,
Talk about another
well,
person.
my mom died yesterday, so everybody's mom
Yeah,
matters,
yeah.
and everybody.
We're
Yeah.
celebrating
Well,
this.
okay, but we're celebrating this person's
Right.
mom.
Yeah.
That was actually another example was
Usher?
funerals.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
Yeah.
yep.
That's true.
And you mentioned the All Lives Matter. I just want to ask, because I think you and I kind of dialogued about the Black Lives Matter movement. And the funny thing is, a lot of people will come up and they believe that because somebody puts Black Lives Matter, that you're I hate to say it, card-carrying member of the Black Lives Matter, you know what I mean, organization. And I think the reality is, a lot of people, at least myself and a lot of other friends that I know, they're not necessarily affiliated with the Black Lives Matter organization, but it's more of and that's how it started. It started as a hashtag.
Correct.
And so that's just kind of someone's way of putting it in a unifying way, saying that I believe that Black Lives Matter. And so I don't necessarily know. I know for myself, that's what it means to me. What about you?
It's more of a movement to me than it's a lifestyle for us that actually live it. So, like you said before, I think it's kind of a trend on social media at first because I don't see as many posts about it. And I don't know if you guys watch Netflix or Hulu or anything, but the Are You Still Watching after so long? There was one I saw a while ago that said Black Lives Matter, are you still watching? And it said, or are you just waiting for the next episode for somebody to be killed again? And that hit me really deep. I was like, that's almost what it's like. You're
Yeah.
just waiting for the next one to happen. So, like I said, it's a lifestyle for us, and and like I said, I think you understand it. It's a lifestyle more than a movement. So,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Agree. The lifestyle is more powerful than the movement.
exactly.
Because the movement, any movement that has some sort of organization is going to can be shot down, But if it's a heart change, then it's different altogether. Mm.
I wanted to take this time to just say that we will be doing several more episodes, diving deeper. I like the analogy that you gave about it being an onion because I really believe that is what it's like. A lot of people think that, even not to be funny, even with elections, people think that, oh, if you get this person in, this is going to change. Or, I think that even people of color thought, okay, I've heard a lot of people say, well, Obama didn't do what he was supposed to do. And I'm thinking, this is not something that one person can stand there and make some systematic rules. Now, granted, there are laws that can be changed, but people seem to miss the fact that we're all instrumental.
And it
And
didn't
doing
just
that-
start in
Right.
2016.
Right. It didn't start in 2016. It didn't start at the beginning of Obama's,
At all,
I mean,
at
it's
all.
been
It's-
an ongoing thing. And I think one thing politically that it does help is that I think people, as they are younger, much younger than I was when I first started paying attention, they're getting it, that it's not just about the presidential
Correct.
election, that it's
That's the-
about even your local elections that make a lot more rules and changes
yeah.
to your everyday life.
Absolutely.
And so I think that hopefully that means that people really start paying attention to
Mhm.
those things and start getting out
and really like
exercising.
researching on their own.
Right.
Because when you are raised in a household that has one ideology, and then you branch off and get out on your own and you're like, I believe that
Mhm.
Right.
because of this?
Mhm.
Wait a minute. Now I'm all kinds of confused.
Mhm.
Right.
So when you can get your own thoughts, I say study your enemy. Whatever it is.
Mhm.
Ohio State studying Meach. I'm just
Had to
saying.
bring it back there.
I had to bring it reel it back in. So, but you have to study your enemy so you know how to attack the enemy. So why not watch CNN? Why not watch Fox News? Make your own opinion.
I'll tell you too. I think that's one of the benefits I've had from working at a news station for the last year. I did not pay attention to news at all, but now we roll the same stories all day. I hear these things. I hear people talking, and I'm just like, how is anybody okay with
Mhm.
some of this
How they're
stuff?
programming.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah.
You have to study.
Exactly. You do.
Have to always
You
be
have to
in
be.
education.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
And just pay attention, because sometimes to me the funny thing is that people will go with a specific narrative and you're like, are you even listening to
Yeah,
what's
like,
being said, because this really does not
Mhm.
make sense,
Right.
so
I think there's like two sources of media, not news, that I think a white person needs to watch in its entirety. One is Just Mercy. It is just a fantastic, true story.
That's good.
And then
the
That
other
was good.
one-
That was really
The other one that takes maybe just a little bit of filter, just because you may not understand everything, is 13th Amendment, which I thought was very well done. I went to it thinking it was maybe slanted a little bit, but because there was a lot of, but it's more like a documentary. Have you seen it? Have you
I've
seen it?
seen it.
Okay,
I've
yeah.
not
Yeah,
seen it.
yeah.
I've
Oh,
seen bits and
really?
pieces.
very
It's
good.
good.
And
Yeah.
it's like, I think they interviewed 20 people,
Yeah, it's
white,
good.
black, and everything. But it definitely is an eye opener, and it definitely opens up your eyes to the injustice in the penal system. It really does, and it opened my eyes. I mean, I can't tell you I'm waving necessarily, but I mean, I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't want, If I had a black son, I would not want him or daughter to get into the system because I don't know if they would come out. And I know that the system is, every system's broken, and it is
Correct.
broken, and we do need reform. And I don't know what that looks like, but it does need, it just does.
It's like you said in the beginning, though, baby steps. You know, in that
Right.
Yeah,
direction.
man.
So, yeah.
But like you said, then things get quiet, and then is it the next bomb that happens where,
Right.
you know, and I'm like, what do you do about that? And how do you keep things going? And, you know, it's a much deeper issue than the issue,
Right.
right?
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. So how do you prepare your children for conversations like this?
So you were
like in
asking
the
what you can
school?
do, right? So, well, we homeschool.
Okay.
So,
or well
you
in their
know,
circles.
I'm a
if-
rough principal.
COVID didn't hit you
Yeah,
hard. It hit us
yeah.
twice as
I-
hard.
when y'all started, when COVID came, I'm like, welcome to our life.
That's right. And I was like 911.
Yeah, I know.
But I
But-
mean, like if they're involved in
No,
sports.
yeah,
or-
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like, what can I do at 50? As well, I can make sure that the ignorance doesn't pass along, and that's no shot to parents and grandparents.
Right.
It's just like I said. I think some of it's passive ignorance, some of it was blatant ignorance, and everybody deals with their own level of ignorance. But what I can do is at least make those things aware. Both my boys, 15 and 13, watched 13th Amendment with me. Little farther than I would have let the 13-year-old watch, but you know what? Jason and Justice channels have to deal with this in a real life situation, and I'm like, you know what? These guys, my son's got to understand what a black man or black woman or a person of non-color is really going through deep down. And this is just one movie, one documentary, but it was still a good it was still an eye-opener. Here's another one. There's a guy, I don't know if you've ever heard of Veggie Tales. It's like this Christian, white evangelical guy, right?
Oh, yeah.
But he does this thing on YouTube for 17 minutes. He explains why black people can be angry about what's going on right now. And it is fantastic. Because it's like he takes his, it's just like, I don't know what his layer, I don't even know his name, but he tells the entire 17 minutes in injustice and in balance in the penal system. It was really well done. So you should look at that. But those are things, just quick learns, like, okay, I need to look into deeper something here. So,
Well, thank you.
sorry. I'm talking
So
too
we'll
much.
No,
ask
you're
you,
good. Change
though,
at the house. That's
Does he use the VeggieTale characters?
No,
I
but
love
his voice is like that Larry
Okay.
guy.
Larry the cucumber?
He is the voice
Okay,
of that.
Cool, good.
And
He's
so it's
gonna
just
talk
funny
about
but he
why
talks
the-
super fast,
Yeah.
and he's telling these like, whoa,
Uh-huh.
you're like getting hit with all this truth, and you're like, oh my gosh,
The cucumber spin
Yeah.
the truth.
Wow.
Right.
it's really good.
So one of the things I wanted to touch on is the fact that we are going to have some other episodes, and each one of you is going to be a part of one of those panels. And so, Cantley, you start with yours. You're going to be a part of one that's entitled "The Power of Words." And the reason why I wanted to have something like that is you hear a lot of things thrown around. You hear people being called racist and different things like that. And one word that sticks out to me, you don't hear people use it a lot, but I believe it goes on all of the time, is objectification. And it's taking that group and objectifying them, bringing them down and degrading them to almost like an object. And so I kind of wanted to ask you, how do you think that plays a role in the interactions of law enforcement or just people in general with people of color?
So I'm not like a crazy history buff or anything, but I think back in, the times of slaves and stuff, to me it almost seemed like black people, when we were, castrated, lynched, stuff like that, we were almost seen as like a trophy, some kind of status symbol. And I think it might even kind of be the same thing now with, white cops killing black guys. It's almost like we're seen as like a prize or a trophy, like open season on us. And then when I think of black women, just the objectification of them, it's almost like they're just dehumanized all the time. I think we see it in our own communities and rap videos, stuff like that. But I think it's kind of different for men and women in the black community.
Okay.
And I don't think it's fair to either men or women, what we experience. So yeah, it's hard. There's a lot to that question, but there's a
That's
lot.
a whole episode.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a
it
whole
really
thing.
is. And
It is.
I think for me, one of the things, not just within the black community, but one of the things that hits hard for some reason at my job is when they were talking about the borders and things like that, because there's always the narrative pushed, especially in any kind of manufacturing environment. I think you hear it probably more than you hear it in any other workplace.
Yeah.
Oh, they're taking our jobs, or they're this. So you always hear people say they, or those people, or statements like that. So it gets to a point where it's like, okay, so you think that it's okay that this is being done, you know what I mean? So it's just one of those things that I think is important for us to be cognizant of, is even in our own, I mean, even at the shop, another way that we do it a lot of times is you'll hear the company. The company's doing this to us, or the union's doing that to us, and it's like, okay, who exactly is the company? You know what I mean? Because you're working here, so technically we're all a part of the company. But because you say it like that, that allows you to treat that person that's affiliated in that group less than.
It's funny too, because I think there's an element of like the sexual thing to it, kind of. Because I've seen people online before post, I want to have mixed kids so bad. I'm like, well, why is it you want to have mixed kids? Like what is it? And like, I see people say, my black boyfriend, or like, why can't it just be my boyfriend?
Correct.
Right.
So it's just stuff like that I see and I catch on to. And if I ever address it to anybody, they don't see the problem with it. And I'm just like, it's almost like sometimes I think black men and women too are kind of seen as these like factories that just like, make cute mixed kids. And it's just like, that's not, it's like, but it's just crazy how many times I've heard people say that. It's just like, do you like us for who we are? Or are we just an object,
Correct.
for
so
you
that
to
you
get
can have something.
what you want, so.
It's funny that you said that, and it kind of leads me into the question with Joy, because one of the segments that we're going to have is called Mixed Kids.
Okay.
And it's
Good job.
you didn't even know that.
Right on cue.
But it's called Mixed Kids and Cross-Cultural Families. And so with that being said, Julie, one of the things that with the latest Biden selection of Kamala Harris, the funniest thing was I knew as soon as, and it didn't even take the whole day, and you started seeing people put things out there about, well, what is she? Is she black? Is she Asian? She's not claiming her black side, or she's not claiming her Asian side. And so I wanted to talk to Julie about, have you ever felt like you were in that position or that predicament where somebody made you feel like you had to choose?
I would say probably in my younger years, like elementary school, I felt like I had to choose white because that's everything that was around me. It was the country club. It was the polo club. It was Snow Hill Elementary. It was white. So the only other person that looked like me was my sister. And every other weekend we could go to my dad's, where then it was a little shift. So I learned early on how to function in two different cultures. And if I brought the black culture into the white culture, why are you talking like that? That's not how it's pronounced. We don't put S's on things. And I'm thinking, what? When I go over here, S's are on everything. It's Kroger's, Myers, Gold Circles. I mean, but that was a cultural thing. So now is that culture bad because I brought it over here and you don't say that? Or is this the correct way and you see what I'm saying? But anyway, I learned how to function at an early age, not to be a biracial child, but how to function either white
or the other,
or how to function black, which was like, as you gave me these questions, I was like, have I ever? And then I was like, think back to when you were like 3 and 4 and you moved here. That's when I recognized that there were differences in color. When I was at the country club swimming, and I can remember being there, I was probably like 6, no older than 6, maybe even 5. And we go up to order. My grandfather said, you can go up, just order food, whatever, just put it on the bill. And so my sister and I went up there, and I looked in the back, and there was a black guy, and he was cooking the food, and he looked right at me, and I instantly knew I was not supposed to be here.
Wow.
And from that day on, you guys, 41 years ago, I knew I was never again going to order any food from there because I felt that connection between him that this isn't right. Why are you cooking? You should be out. It's hot. It's 90 degrees. Why aren't you out here swimming? Or you see a caddy pulling golf carts. Why aren't you golfing? Like, don't you like to golf? So that kind of shifted. And then and thank you for bringing that up because I never really realized that that's how little Julie functioned for the first 13 years of her life. Then I went to Roosevelt, and then I got some black friends.
Shifted.
It shifted. But what shifted was there was no color. They didn't see me as biracial Julie. They didn't see me as her dad's black, her mom's white. They saw me as Julie. And then it was game over. And I got a backbone. And I was able to have conversations with people like, you called me an Oreo. That was screwed up. You called me a skunk. Not very nice. But you have a receding hairline now and a big beer belly. So watch
There's
God work.
names for that.
That's right. That's right. So I'm excited to talk about that topic because there's a lot to delve into.
Yeah, there's a lot in that.
I mean, like,
Wow.
It's a lot
lots.
more than people think, and I think maybe because the funny thing awakening to me was because I always have worked, and so I've never been the parent that's gotten really to take their kids to school much or anything like that. And I can remember when I was off for something, and I was taking my youngest. This is before we moved. He went to Snow Hill out of his many elementary schools, and I showed up to pick him up, and there was like all these mixed kids coming out, and I was like, whoa, what is going, I mean, it was almost like,
That majority?
yeah, because I was very different because my adopted parents felt it was important, essential for us to be around other people that looked like us, and although there weren't many that looked like me, but there were plenty of black people because I grew up on South Fountain and Perrin Avenue. So, and I went to Highlands and Hayward and South. But I can remember in third grade I showed up to school and I was new to Highlands, and it was like, who are you and what are you? And
That's
I
a
mean,
big
I
one.
can
What are you?
remember standing outside of the portable like in tears because I was just so, feeling so rejected. But I mean, I quickly got over that because, I was around, but it was so weird because like you said, growing up at our age, that was not the norm. There was not an abundance.
There was like three of us.
You might
you
know
what
a
I
few,
mean?
and everybody thought you were related to,
Correct.
which I thought was hilarious because by the time I got to high school, there was maybe 4 or 5 of us that were biracial, and everybody would say, "Are you so and so's cousin or sister?" And I'm like, I don't even know these people. You know what I mean? So yeah, I do think it'll be very interesting to get into. Another one of our topics is going to be white privilege, and
Why would you choose me? What?
well, Rob,
I feel,
the elephant in the
feel
room.
targeted right now. What are you doing?
white privilege
everybody
and the
looking
normalcy of racism, and again, I do want to commend you because I'll go as far as to say this: you are the only white male that I have found willing to have this conversation, any conversation having to.
I may
with
be
race.
in trouble. No.
So that is a huge step. So you will be on a panel of all women. But I did pick you, and I also picked the entire panel to be, other than myself, to be white. And there was a specific reason for that because it's just like us as black people. You don't want, just kind of like what Cantley said, when I'm sharing something or I'm going through something or this is my experience, I don't want you to try and tell me.
Right.
And I feel like there are a lot of white people that kind of feel attacked. They feel that when you say white privilege, that somehow they have gotten something, like they've gotten the gold ticket that nobody else got, and they think that it means that they haven't had to work hard or they haven't endured
There's
struggles.
probably a lot of
You know what I
feelings
mean?
there. Yeah.
And so I felt it was important to assemble a panel of all
Mm-hmm.
white people to discuss this topic and see what your
That's
feelings are. So,
Good idea.
yeah. Do you want to share anything about that, or you want
No,
to
I,
wait
th- I
until
mean, I
you're-
think, I mean, I can understand because, so for me, if I could say white privilege would make me appear lazy, that would be offensive.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm just talking like, so I can understand crossing that bridge in my brain and like, but I understand. I could simply say white privilege is I don't have to worry about getting pulled over. I can drive without worry. And I can go places without worry. That's privilege. I understand that. And I don't know if that means son. Quit calling me. It's the true middle. But the I don't know if that I don't know if that necessarily. It's just something that, like I said, I've been in. You've almost like you become insensitive to what other people's concerns or like we've talked about, just like what other people have to deal with. So. And that's what I would say is some of the defaults for somebody is when you lived privileged, whether it's privilege with money, privilege as white, not being burdened by police officers who won't even take a second look at you. That's some sort of privilege. So I mean, I can address that. I can't blame. I was raised in a business. I was raised. I don't think I was handed money, but I was given things. But at the same time, I was always given a job so I could work. But that's there, and I don't want to like feel bad about the life I have. It is what it is.
Right.
But
And you should.
but I'm just saying, but that's not what we're really talking about
No,
here.
and I
And
think
I
that's the
appreciate you
key.
taking
Yeah.
that idea and really setting it up in such a way like what's the core of white privilege?
Right.
It's not just money or status, but it is status. Get rid of that status
Yeah,
thing.
I agree. But it's also how you can function
Yeah.
in life without having certain obstacles. I say that from experience. Growing up, I looked like a tan white girl in the winter. You know what I mean? And so I knew how to operate.
You have curly hair too.
I did. So I just straightened it.
I know you had curly hair.
And I just learned how, again, to function between the two of them. I knew certain lines that could be stretched with
Yeah.
the white side,
Right.
where I would be permitted, where I would be allowed, what things would not have been said about me, but then at the same time I saw the stares
Yeah.
because I was different.
I tell you, that's some of an exercise I've just tried to do is to not take a second look at you walking down the street.
Correct.
Or just
Right.
it's a mental exercise, but I'm trying to keep that why in front of me, like why.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's just it's like if I can maybe go after that,
Right.
just go after that one thing. Like why did I make a second look? Like,
And see color.
yeah.
Don't be the person that says, "Oh, I don't see color."
Yeah,
I
that's-
need you to
that's
see
crap
my
too.
color.
Yeah, that's
I need
it.
you to see that
Yeah.
this
What'd you
is
call that? That's
Right,
like
right.
yeah.
That's-
Let's
yeah,
just
yeah.
make it all.
Yes. Don't
throw the
ever
blanket
that.
down.
Go
That's
away.
the- Yes.
see my color.
Right. So that's we're gonna wrap this up.
No.
It's only been
I'm
4
so
hours. Come on.
nervous. I do want to touch on. I'm just going to mention the other subjects that we will be covering. One is colorism, and so that you know that will be made up of all African American females. Colorism is something that we all battle with. We battle with it, whether we like to admit it or not, and sometimes just like white privilege, it's very ingrained into the way we do things. I actually even talked to my sons about it before I just had an entire panel of women, and they even were like, "Yeah, Mom, that's not something that most of us guys get hung up on, and we don't, spend our life wishing that we were a shade lighter or darker or things of that nature, But that really is something that impacts heavily in the African American community amongst women. The other thing is justice versus injustice and the rewards and cost of fighting both. And I want to look at that because sometimes we say, why don't people just speak out? Why don't people just do something about it? And you need to have an understanding that with doing something about it, usually there's going to be a price that you're going to have to pay. Sometimes it's not as major as other places, but there's usually
Correct.
a cost involved. And the last thing is the role of the church today in fighting social injustice. We do know that the church was heavily involved before, and just kind of want to get some insight on what that looks like now. I did want to mention some of the other people that will be on some of the panels. We'll have Ebony Speaks Hall, Stephanie Stevens, Karen Copeland, Jean Peabody, Michael Moore, Tisa Bradley, David Martin, Nikki Williams, Jennifer Ramig, Dorian Hunter, Veronica Martin, Crystal Borden, Michelle Stevens, and Pastor Jason Channels will be joining us.
A wise
And
decision.
we hope to have a couple other pastors as well, but I didn't want to mention any names until they were actually confirmed and agreed to appear. So I'm going to wrap this up. I really enjoyed talking with all of you and look forward to our individual panel discussions soon to come.
Such a blessing. Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome. Thank
Thank
you.
you.